Hey YouTube fans, it's Jimmy here, and I was wanting to go over a few things about my Power Commander. I've got me some air fuel gauges hooked up. I need to neaten up my wires, but I have one air fuel gauge for one turbo, one air fuel gauge for the other turbo, which each turbo is running off two cylinders. The manifold is not connected in the middle. Each turbo's literally ran off two, and the other ones ran off the other two. And I was just wanting to give you all some of my opinion and insight I've seen on this Power Commander here and messing with it and what I've figured out. And it might help you all if you want to mess around with your Power Commander or however. Uh, Now I've got mine set up for the advanced settings so I can do by cylinder, fuel tables and fuel pressure. Uh, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and multiple maps. And one thing I was wanting to tell you all, like right now, this here is nowhere near what it's going to be in the end. This is just me trying to get the bike to run properly so that I can start adjusting things. And you see a lot of negatives here, and the reason being is because I have a high performance fuel pump, and I'm also running 61 psi of fuel pressure. So I had to bring the fuel down a lot, but I have it coming back up towards the top with also PSI on boost pressure, as you can see. Now, this here, I'll tell you all this here later on. This is a little something I do for fun. I have it, once I get the bike tuned in right, I can show you all how to basically make it just shoot flames. It's kind of cool. I usually have that set up on a different map, like when you have a map switch hooked up to your Power Commander. But what you basically do is you add a lot of fuel as the engine would be idling down. Like if you're, let's say, run it up or rev it up to 10 or 11,000, you let off the throttle, your TPS fuel table right here will be 0, and it will fall down in this column until it reaches idle. Well, as it's falling, if you have an area where you're adding, let's say, 50 plus fuel, like a number 50 right here, and then you have an area where you kill the fuel 100% by doing minus 250, it'll allow that unburned fuel in the exhaust to get ignited by the extra air you just created. Now, I do not recommend running around with this setup because it ain't really all that good on anything. It's just kind of for fun and for show. So if y'all go out and damage your stuff, that ain't my fault. I'm just telling you it's cool. I like it. A lot of people love it when you shoot flames, you roll in somewhere. You know what I mean? That's a little trick I've learned playing with the Power Commander. But my main thing is, though, is just giving you all an understanding. If this all reads zeros, the entire board here reads zeros, all this, then that means it's running off the factory computer settings. Now, also, you have to take into account if your factory computer is in limp mode or whatever, because if you unhook a sensor or something like that on your factory computer and it sets the F1 light or it sets the check engine light, then your computer from factory will not give it all the timing or fuel or anything like that. And yes, the Power Commander will change the computer no matter what. It will change the settings, whether the computer's in limp mode or whether the computer is working perfectly normal. Okay? So take that in consideration. If you, let's say, unhook the pair valve, for example, it will set a check engine light, and the engine will not get as much timing and stuff like that because it's trying to just basically have you take it to the dealer and find out what's wrong with it. So they pull the timing and everything out of the engine to make it safer for the engine and more reliable. So you won't make as much power. And yes, you can go in there with the Power Commander and actually change the settings enough to make more power than you did. So a lot of people do that, and they have their check engine light on and all that on. Well, honestly, when I ride mine around, I don't have a check engine light on. Reason being is because I make sure my computer thinks that everything is still there. It, like my pair valve, I literally have just bypassed it. I have the valve just sitting there, but when it checks for that signal, it's there. So my ECU is not going into limp mode on my turbocharged Gexer. And by doing that, I get all the timing out of it. I get, basically everything it's got. And then I can go into the Power Commander and change it from there for the modifications that I've got done. I mean, like the ported and polished heads and the modified combustion chamber. I thought at first I really needed a lot of fuel, but ended up I had to back it way off just to get it to idle properly. And right now it does idle pretty good. But no, I just wanted to explain to everybody that, remember, if your ECU has a check engine light or something on and your Power Commander is there, yes, you can tune the bike that way. But there's also consideration you can leave everything correct on your factory ECU, and then you can modify all your parameters. I am debating on buying a ignition control module. They run about $300. And it's either between ignition control module or doing like the LCD screen for the Power Commander, or maybe like get an auto tune. I've thought about an auto tune. That way, I could ride around and a lot of people would just think it'd be more reliable. Because I eventually plan on getting rid of the bike when it's finished. And somebody might want an auto tune on it. I'm not sure. Why don't y'all give me a answer on that? Should I just get the what they call new Power Core system where I can just data log, or should I go and just get an auto tuner? I'm still going to go in and change the settings to what I want, but it'll also take out some of the long process of figuring out every one of these numbers that need to be exact. Like this here is not going to be final. This is nowhere near what it should look like by any means. But I haven't been able to ride the bike and check the air fuel ratios now that I have air fuel gauges hooked up, which I'm going to set this computer down real quick and show you all what I'm talking about. Now, grant you, I need to neaten up my wires, but I'm the type of guy, I show you how it is. I'm not trying to pretty anything up or make it look nice. I will clean it up, but I want you all to see how it is as I go through it. Okay. Now, here is my newly installed O2 sensor. Okay, and I needed a ground. So my ground is right there. That's an engine ground. I also needed a signal wire, which is right here. That goes to the actual, this wire right here goes to the actual air fuel meter. And these here go up to a hot when key is on. Now the way this works is you have a heater circuit inside this O2 sensor. That is the two black wires on my particular O2 sensors. Alright, now it don't matter which polarity you have these wires. One's going to have to go to a ground no matter what, and one is going to go to a switched hot, which right here. Okay, now the white wire on my O2 sensors go to ground. The blue wire is your signal wire. These are actual Toyota O2 sensors, believe it or not, for a RX 330, if I remember that. I had them laying around. They're brand new, so yeah. And yeah, so that's how I have those hooked up, which I'm going to neaten all the wires up. Eventually, I'm going to actually wrap all the wires and casing. Same thing I did over here. All these are connected up just the same way I just told you. They go up here to my Sun Pro gauges, which, by the way, honestly, I'm not very happy. I had to take the connector apart and actually tighten the terminals to get it to work. This one was working fine a minute ago, and then it just went out. And if I move the wires, it comes on. It's kind of aggravating. But, when you buy cheap stuff on a budget, That's what you get. And yeah. Well, let's see how it fires up. You hear that pump? Yeah. That's 61 psi to the fuel rail. It does have factory injectors, but way more psi than take that. Now, as you can see, this gauge ain't reading. No two sensors have a heater circuit. If what you're supposed to do is fire the vehicle up and let it idle while that heater circuit warms up. You see how that one's changing now? Hey, that one's starting to work. Yay. Now, I'll be using these once I make sure they have a proper connection and they are working properly. I'll be using those gauges once I make sure all the connections are good and I clean up the wires and everything's working properly. I just wanted to test it out and make sure it was going to work the way I wanted it to. And it does. I just need to fix the cheap gauges. Once I have that set up, I'm going to go to my power commander, do my adjustments. My idle, once it's warm, is way too lean. I got to bring some fuel in it and go from there. Oh, and also I wanted to be telling anybody who'll be watching my videos that might have a Grom or something like that, or a Grom knockoff. My wife has one as well, and she loves my little turbochargers, and she gets into this stuff as well. And she actually bought all her parts to put a turbo on her little, I think it's a Boom or something. It's basically a Grom, but carbureted. And I'm going to make a video of me turbocharging my wife's little motorcycle. And y'all get to see basically a little knockoff Grom with a turbo. So, yeah, I hope y'all like my video. If y'all have any questions or anything, please ask. Remember, I'm just putting it out there. This is what I build. I hope y'all like it. I've got a lot of stuff to do to it. I still need to clean it up a lot. I know it looks kind of, pieced together, but I'm going to fix all that once I get all the bugs worked out of it and everything. Well, talk to y'all later. Like and subscribe.